My name is John Agasild. I'm a stand-up comedian living in Glasgow in Scotland. But I haven't always lived here. I was born and raised in Aberdeen in the northeast. I'm working on my next solo stand-up show, and I found myself writing and talking a lot about both of these cities. So I wanted to interview some other comedians about their hometowns, find out what they're like, why they left, why they stayed, and what home means to them. This is the Welcome Home podcast.
Yeah, I love seeing what people's houses look like. Ooh, should I take my shoes off?
If you want, be comfortable.
Yeah,
make yourself
comfy.
comfortable.
Be a comfy girl.
Yeah, because the show is like the podcast is it's supposed to be like a writing exercise for me to write my next show. The first question I wanted to ask you was, how do you write?
Oh fuck. I have silly little ideas. Like usually I'll just be like, especially like if it's right after a comedy show, or like a lot of the time it's when I'm just like in my kitchen, or I'm just like on my own and I'm just monologuing. I'm just like internal monologuing, and I don't know, I'm just like sort of running, and then suddenly like I'll hit on something that just like really makes me laugh, and then I'll be like, oh, that's funny. And then a lot of the time it'll sort of like come up over the next few days where I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's like a funny bit. And then I have like, I don't know, I guess like 5 or 6 long-suffering friends who I don't think are even comedians, most of them, who I will just like send it to them and be like, is this anything? Sometimes I'll tweet it just to see. I did that a lot during COVID.
Chris Corbin talked about that when we spoke, that he was like, some of his bits, like the premise was like a tweet. Yeah. Like I don't do it so much now, but yeah, during COVID I used to test a lot of jokes on Twitter because like, what am I going to do, an online gig? Yeah. And it's like a lot. I mean, to be fair, it's a lot easier to tell if something has like appeal on Twitter than it does on an online gig, because you can actually literally see the engagements. Then usually like I have that idea, I just sort of like sit down and write it out, and then like often what I find quite difficult is I will get distracted by stuff, so I'll like start writing something and then I'll like kind of go off on a tangent on something else, and then I do have a tendency to overthink things. And then basically what I do is I wait until an hour before I have a gig, and then I start writing the material. I feel like I maybe have seen you write before a gig, immediately before a gig.
Yes, like before I'm about to be called on stage.
It doesn't look like, because I write a set list before every single gig, even though if it's a repeat of the like an earlier gig I've just done, but I can. Maybe when I've seen you writing, it looks like you are writing the stuff. Right, okay.
Yeah, I am writing jokes.
How does that, and that you're writing what has been in your head the whole time, or you're just a stream of consciousness that's come from the monologue?
Probably a bit of both. It's usually like what's at that point I'm kind of deciding how much I'm realistically gonna be able to remember when I'm on stage. So often like I've kind of got, it's usually I've got like 3 different sections. So I'll usually have like one section which is just like the brief reference to the joke, so I have like the structure of the set, so like. So
you've got 3 sections on a bit of paper?
In a notebook.
In a notebook. Right.
And then what will usually happen is then like in the middle, it's very disorganized. In the middle of that, I'll probably like leave a gap because I'm still trying to work out what's going in the middle.
Okay.
And then like on the next page, I'll be like sort of expanding the new material that I have, and I'll be like writing that out. And then I'll probably have a couple of bits of like optional material where I'm like, this might be something, but like I'm not sure if I'm gonna have like time to fully write it, or like if I'm gonna have time to really keep it all in my head. And often what will happen is I'll then like put like the main stuff that I want to try like in the middle, and then like the other stuff maybe I put it in or maybe I don't. Okay. I usually have a moment where I'm like, be kind to yourself, and I decide not to put in the extra stuff just because I've already got so much to remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I've never heard anyone talk. I've never. That sounds interesting. Yeah.
I am really interested by that you're dividing, that the page is like functional beyond just top to bottom, left to right text.
Yeah, it's because it's what's happening in my head, and then I'll often like...
Are you neurodivergent?
Probably.
Right.
Like, I did, so yeah, I actually had an ADHD assessment last year where she was kind of like, she basically said that she doesn't, because of like childhood, like the childhood records don't really support ADHD essentially, but she was like, but you do seem like you got something.
Can I, without being, don't want to get personal, that's not what this is about, but, or apart from it, kind of is, but, what do you mean childhood records?
Oh,
because, like, if you're not, I don't understand what that means, because if you're not, unless you're tested for ADHD when you're a child, how could they...
So like grades and stuff,
Okay.
like report cards. Like
what
if I'm
you're
getting...
just a genius?
What if I'm just a genius? Good question, John. I think it's
Basically...
basically...
will get you nowhere.
Yeah, I think the idea is basically like, if you're consistently getting like good grades, you probably don't have ADHD. Like that's I think that's the idea,
Okay,
or
yeah,
that was her idea.
I guess that makes sense.
I did kind of make the argument like, yeah, but I mean I'm actually talking about this in stand up just now because and also everything that I said just there for the record, like that was what she was saying. You know, I'm not making any of my own like sort of, you know, diagnoses or anything, but a sort of thing that I am actually talking about just now is the fact that she's like, oh, you've been able to hold down a job, and I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, but like I'm a Harry Potter tour guide. You know, like, in fact, it actually came up in the assessment where she was, one of the questions I was asked was, can you name a time where you have struggled with paying attention to detail recently? And I was like, I have made my life in such a way that I never need to pay attention to detail. Like, I have a job where I just kind of turn up and do it, and like as long as I'm like on time, it's like fine. And like I do like stand up, and I do like, I don't know, I have a life where I don't really like, I don't do that, you know, and that's like, and like when I have had to do that, when I have had jobs where I've done that, it has not gone very well for me. Mm-hmm. And then she was just sort of like, yeah, but I need it for the test. And I was like, but surely the fact that like I have struggled with that to the extent that I now just avoid it altogether is worth something. Is
indicative, yeah.
Yes. So I don't know, man. But at the same time, like, I mean, I definitely, I don't know. I have a sort of I have some what?
No, it's. Oh no, we'll go on. What were you going to say?
Oh no, I have like, I don't know, there's a lot that we don't really understand about neurodivergence and about mental health generally. And I do kind of have an awareness of the fact that I do know that like, so basically a thing that I've sort of been thinking about over the last year is I know that when we are getting personal, like basically when I was like a really young baby, I had a hospital stay for like 2 weeks when I was like 2 months old.
Right.
Which would have meant that I was like, you know, separated from my parents apart from when my mum was able to visit me for like 2 weeks, and I had like a throat abscess, and obviously I don't remember any of this. But that was probably really traumatic. Yeah, the body keeps a score, right?
I don't know what that book is or whatever.
But you're
I just know that it is now I know that it's a... I know that it's like a...
Oh man,
it's like a
John, if you were still single right now, like you could pop that out on like a first date.
I'd be seeing the skylight tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so
But totally, I mean, I don't know what that is in terms of what all that means.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had like a hospital stay when I was young because when I was born I was like having fits of some kind, and I don't know. I need to. Yeah, I'm sure that's something.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, trauma is a type of neurodivergence, right?
I don't know. Sure, why not?
I mean, it changes your neurons.
Yes.
Changes your brain.
Yeah.
You know, so like, I don't know. I do sort of wonder if a lot of like things which at the moment are coming up as, you know, that people are thinking like, oh, this is neurodivergency. It could also be trauma, you know? It could be like various types of trauma. And there's also, I don't know, I feel like sometimes like there's a lot of riding, if you like feel that you might have ADHD, there's a lot of riding on the idea that you do. And I feel like we also need to be very clear that like it is okay if you don't technically like fit the diagnosis, but you're struggling.
Yeah.
Like that's okay. That doesn't make you shit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that like, well, what I was going to say earlier when I prevented myself from completely interrupting you was that like, it sounds like regardless of diagnosis or whatever, that you've, you know, made a life for yourself that works for, you've made a life for yourself that works for you.
Yeah, maybe I should have just shown her like my stand-up notes. And I should have been like, this isn't planned.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not like I sit down and I'm like, I'm going to do this over 3 pages. Like, it's as the writing happens, I'm like, oh, I'm going on a tangent here, I'd better like put that over here. But then like sometimes the tangent, I'm like, this is maybe kind of long and not that funny. Or like, just like very funny specifically to me. Like, there's a lot of things where I'm like, there's a dark comedy in this, like a dark, ironic comedy.
But it's hard to work out if that is how your brain works when you are being creative from a blank page.
Yeah.
And also working out, like, doing comedy and working out new material, all of which is there's such shifting, it's so nebulous and hard to...
I would say my
I think.
approach to essay writing is very similar.
Right, okay.
Yeah, which is a problem. Like, I get through it, but it's a problem.
Right, yeah. In this essay, I will... in conclusion...
Yeah. Like, it takes me, like, such a long time to even decide what I'm getting... You know, I'll, like, switch, like, topics. I'll, like, think I'm going to write about this, and then I start reading it, and I'm like, nah. Yeah, it takes me a very long time to settle on a topic a lot of the time. And then, like, when I'm writing an essay, it's sort of like, I'll start, like, writing, and then midway through a sentence, it's like my brain gets so excited that I just, like, jump to the next point that I want to make. So I'll literally, like, stop writing mid-sentence and then just, like, start a new sentence. Like, I'll, like, hit, like, enter and go down and just, like, I'll be like, oh, and I have to talk about it, and then I look at it, I'm like, okay, I need to, like, somehow patch this all back together.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, it's just,
I found actually writing difficult, but that sounds, like a challenging way to do it.
But it's just kind of what's happening as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a genius.
I think so.
Let's go back to that.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Your writing process. I love talking to people about it, and even though it has all been like, you think that it's just super conventional, that there can't be that. Everybody that I've spoken to has had slightly different answers. So thanks for telling me that and sharing other stuff as well. That was really interesting. So, where were you born?
I was born in Govan.
Don't dox.
Yeah, I know.
Completely.
Because you wanted me to talk about how I lived on your street, but without doxing you.
Yeah. So
cool.
you were born in Govan.
Yeah, but I didn't live on your street in Govan.
Right. So yeah.
So I was born in southern Gen, this Southie G.
Everybody so far, you're the fourth guest I've had. Everybody has name dropped the hospital that they were born in.
I don't know.
It's just a thing.
Because it's like, where were you born? It's like.
It's just a thing people do.
I was born in the Southern General just after midnight, which makes me a Sagittarius rising. And don't worry about it.
What?
Ask Lauren.
That makes you a Sagittarius rising, that you were born just after midnight.
Yeah. So your rising sign is your rising sign is what constellation was coming over the horizon. Okay. At the time and the place you were being born. Okay. So that changes throughout the day. And depending on the geography, yeah.
I know some stuff about this.
Yeah, like, you live with Laura.
I'm a Libra, but I am a Taurus rising.
That makes so much sense.
She's the opposite.
Oh. Like she's a Libra.
Rising.
She's and a Taurus. Oh yeah, because we share a birthday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or her birthday's like right after mine. Like
your birth. When is your birthday?
May.
May
the 18th.
My sister's birthday is your birthday.
Right, okay. Wow.
And Lauren's
The lore.
birthday is 4 days before that.
Okay, fun. Yes, because Lauren and I also have a mutual friend
so you're a
who
Taurus.
I think is also born on the 18th. Yeah, so I'm a Taurus. And I was born in Southern General. And yeah, I actually lived in Ibrox, I think, for the first 6 months of my life, but 2 of those weeks were in hospital. So yeah, we lived on I don't know, I shouldn't say what street I was on, should I? Nah.
Would you say
Probably not. I was near Paisley Road West.
One of the longest streets.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I was just
nice
on
and
Paisley
vague.
Road West.
Perfect. Good for Glasgow's good for keeping it vague. I live near Dumbarton Road. I live near Paisley Road.
Yeah. I obviously remember. I think we couldn't live there anymore because of Thatcher. Maybe. I think Thatcher was like vaguely involved.
Okay.
I don't know, poll tax. I don't know.
Okay.
No, that wouldn't have been the poll tax. But
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But I think it was to do with things becoming too expensive and they couldn't live in that house anymore.
Sure.
So we moved to a new build in Govan. That's where I grew up. I guess I lived there till I was 18. Went to uni, lived there for another couple of years, lived on your street for 6 months. Your house is a lot nicer than the house I lived on this street. That was the worst house I've ever lived in. It was horrible. it was so horrible.
What was it like growing up in Govan?
How's it like for me growing up in Govan with my weird family?
You don't have to talk about the interior. You could just be like, what was the
No, but it's the interior. The personal is a political, John. No, the interior is important because that's part of who I was existing in Govan.
Sure.
You know, because my family are very, very strange. So my parents met. My dad used to they're basically folkies. So my dad was a folk singer.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was quite amongst the sort of British folk scene. He was quite well known.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
He primarily as a sound guy. He would edit people's do people's sound mixing and everything. And he used to book the folk club in Glasgow. And actually when he died, we had a big sort of memorial concert for him over 2 days where loads of folk singers came and performed for free.
Wow. A festival.
Yeah, basically it was in the St Andrew's Church in the city centre, the big church. And I think Dick Gaughan headlined, which was because I don't know, he's a big guy if you're into
I'll take
that
your
music.
word for it. I'm sure there's people who
it was so they were both, so we were always getting taken off to folk festivals, and there was always loads of guitars in the house and loads of musical instruments, and they cycled everywhere. We've never had
Legends.
cars, so they just we were always cycling around or
in the
carrying.
90s. That's hard. That's hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, we cycled everywhere. We cycled to Holland one time.
But that must have been hard in the 90s because of cycling infrastructure being terrible. But part of cycling is that you just fucking do it.
That's it. I'm very
you just get on with it. If you do it, then you just put up with whatever.
Yeah, I'm very unintimidated by Glasgow roads. In fact, I find Glasgow way better cycling than Edinburgh. I actually don't cycle in Edinburgh at all now. Because just fill cobblestones and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I lived in Glasgow, even as an adult, I cycled absolutely everywhere. I would cycle up to 10 miles a day sometimes.
Wow.
Just around the city.
Wow.
Going to different places.
Your parents cycled everywhere?
Yes. I mean that's what we would do. On the weekend we'd cycle into town and get. Oh, and they had a big.
Did you go in? You would have your own bike and go with them, or
I had my
would
own
you
bike.
Be in a little back thing
So,
they have now, or because
when I was
I've
really
never
young,
seen. them. I don't remember seeing them until the past like 6 or 7 years. Like those things that people put their kids in.
I think they've existed for a long time.
Sure,
but when my sister was really young, they had like a sort of extension thing, which like attached like basically to the back of one of their bikes, and then like. Yeah, I guess by the time I was like 5 or 6, I was cycling on my own. But also they had a big.
That seems young.
Maybe 6 or 7.
That seems young.
Yeah.
It also seems like a great way. We're just really talking about cycling now. But
Yeah.
For like, what like, kids I think would love that, being in the back, this like back thing, being like, whoa. But also maybe a bit. I don't think they would maybe know to be scared.
Okay, so here's the next thing. Here's the next thing. Here's the next thing, because like so that thing was more like you were sitting on a saddle and you had like handlebars. That's what
That's
they also
good as well for training you without even doing pedals.
For sure. But what we also like pedaled, but we were attached to the back of them. What they did have was they had a trailer, like a big blue trailer. That they would do the shopping in every week, and it was on wheels, it was on 2 wheels, and it would attach to the back of the bike, and they would cycle up to Asda and like get all the family shopping for the week, and then like bring it home in the trailer. But sometimes I did.
Your eyebrows. Yeah.
Yeah, Govan Asda.
Yeah.
I was like the one thing we have. We've got that. We've got the cafe. That's it. No, we've got the Pierce Institute.
Yeah, I've never been to the Pierce Institute. Actually.
Never. Yeah, I suppose you would go if there was like an event on or something. Yeah, I've been to like meetings and things in there, and like when Buzzcut used to do art festivals in there as well, but I don't know if they do that anymore. But yeah, so they would sometimes let me ride in the trailer, and that was probably like unsafe. Yeah, and I used to go and I pretend to be. I think I would pretend to be like a dog in a hot air balloon.
Why would you?
I mean, I don't think
Sure, yeah.
I think like the hot air balloon like made the most sense because you are literally in like a basket.
Right, okay.
And then it's also like you're looking out over the site, so I was like, oh, it's kind of like a dog. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it too much. Like, I wasn't like.
You could be a person in a hot air balloon as well.
Yeah, but I felt like a dog.
It's cute.
Because I was like sitting down as well. I was like sitting and like it's fun to pretend to be a dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really weird for everyone else. Like these were all like quite strange things for us to be doing.
People walking past and this little girl's like.
And like I know that I just went through a whole thing of like saying like maybe I'm not neurodivergent, but I was like undeniably very strange, and our family was undeniably very strange.
Eccentric.
Yeah.
For the time.
Maybe even now. Maybe. My dad used to walk around and he would always like have a big like sort of like, it wasn't quite a cowboy hat, but it was a big like wide brimmed hat, and at one point he had like a fake ferret tail and he would have that attached to the hat, for example.
Cool.
Yeah. He also like only had one eye, but that's a whole other thing. That was later on in life. That was from like 2007 or 2008. He only had one eye.
I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be like, oh, one eye, eccentric. So sort of growing up in an eccentric household, and then being in the back of a sort of cycling, would you call it? Trailer.
Yeah.
Around Govan, yeah, he'd get some odd.
Yeah,
some odd looks. But then the thing is, people talk about like, oh, Glasgow, like you couldn't get away with that in Glasgow. People would say this and that. Like Glasgow's full of eccentric people.
Yes, I think it's. I mean, okay. I think to be honest, I think it's really because of we've got like this weird thing in our family of like we get read as middle class quite a lot.
Okay.
But it's like, I live here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if I was middle class, why would I be living here?
Yeah.
Because I obviously don't sound, I think like that's probably like the biggest thing is because I don't sound like I'm from Govan, you know? Because I get this one of the like nicest, like, or one of the like less like, one thing which is like nice about living in Edinburgh is no one questions my accent, ever. Whereas in Glasgow, like even as an adult, it was like a constant thing. Like people just like constantly asking me like, you know, where are you from?
where are you really from? Like, literally people being like, no, but where are you actually from? And I'd be like, I'm from Glasgow. And they'd be like, no, you're not. And I'd be like, I don't know where you think the conversation goes after this. Like, and also this is really bad chat. And people would accuse me, like, people have accused me of, like, lying about being from Govan before. And I'm like, why? I'm not gonna lie about being from Govan.
Yeah.
You know, even if I'm trying to lie for, like, some kind of, like, stolen working class valor, I'd probably say Gorbals.
Right.
You know, like, I'm probably not gonna say Govan.
Right.
Yeah, I got read as, like, posh quite a lot, even when I was quite young. And I also cried very easily. I cry really easily, John.
Oh.
I've actually not cried for a bit.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I've probably cried in the last day. Because I do cry every day. Yeah, I cry every day. But it's like, it can be so casual that I'll, like, fully forget that I cried. Like, because I'll just, like, start overthinking something and I'll, like, get very into the moment and I'll cry. And then I'll just, like, go and, like, make my dinner or something. And I'll just, like... Yeah, I cry, like, every day.
Right, okay.
One of my, a story that my mum loves to tell about me is, about a time where basically, like, we saw a school which looked very similar to the school that my sister went to. So I went, oh, that's Gemma's school. And my mum was like, no, it's not. And I just, like, screamed. I just screamed and wouldn't stop screaming until she was like, okay, yeah, that's Gemma's school. Although I do think that's, like, normal toddler behavior.
Yeah.
Like, she talks about it like I was, like, this devil child. I was like, I don't know, man. I've heard about toddlers.
Yeah.
Like, I think they do stuff
You're
like
just
that.
like upset and unable to articulate that your perception has...
Yeah.
That you cannot perceive that somebody be like, no, it's okay, Roisin, schools are all designed quite similarly, and they you're not going to be like, all right, okay, cool. Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, what am I like?
I just had my perception of reality challenge right there.
Yeah.
It's woohoo.
Yeah.
My school was 100 years old.
Wow.
Yep.
And it closed down
It closed down.
because they were like, 100 years is
It's
too
enough.
much. It's too
100
long,
years
yeah.
of excellence is too much. Yeah. They closed down. But
Was that whilst you were... they closed it down after
after I left, they were like, we peaked.
Yeah.
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 It's never gonna get better.
Yeah.
I went to a Presbyterian school.
What does that mean?
It means that it wasn't Catholic. So my parents are like mad atheists as well. That's
Right,
also quite
okay.
important to my upbringing. And I don't just mean like they didn't go to church. I mean like love Richard Dawkins, like
I see.
super like new atheists. Which is something we've had to have like a lot of conversations about as an adult.
I see.
But like so
it's still forcing a belief system upon you.
No, just because like I think more just talking about like the toxicity of a lot of the new atheist movement, which still kind of like
Monsieur Gervais and stuff.
Yes. Mr. Ricky and like primarily Dawkins. I actually spoke to Richard Dawkins.
Whichever Richard.
Whichever one.
What your favourite atheist Richard, Gervais or Dawkins?
Yeah. For my mom, it was definitely Dawkins. Like you know how like
You spoke
people
to
have.
him?
Yeah, I spoke to him on the phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
When I was in school, I was interested in like doing journalism, and I did work experience. I set it up, very diligent on me. I set up some work experience for like this like student magazine thing, but it wasn't like student in the school. It was like it would go in. It was like 4 schools across Scotland. And there was just one day, like one Easter holiday, where they like gave me a call and they were like, hey, are you busy this afternoon and do you want to come and interview Richard Dawkins? And I was like, all right. So like, yeah, and I went in and it was taking ages to get connected because he couldn't get his speakerphone to work. So like I hated the tension, so I just went, see, your science can't get the phones to work. And he didn't like that at all. Like, he was really annoyed. He was like, yes, well, I think we'd better get on now. And I was like, you're the one who's holding us up, Richard. And then he was just like really like, he was just like really snippy and like cold for like the rest of the interview. and just like very sarcastic. And then we were like, oh wow.
Very mature.
Yeah.
Very
It's
mature
like
for being interviewed by a teenager.
fucking like an actual like 17-year-old.
Yeah.
I always think of that story whenever Richard Dawkins is in the news. I'm like, I know about you, Richard. So. And then I got to go home and tell my mom that I'd interviewed Richard Dawkins and he was a cunt. I think in more recent years she's been like, I think I mentioned like a debate that he was having with a scientist recently where he was really rude and she was like, the arrogance or something. She said that he was arrogant.
Yeah.
So, good for her.
Yeah. So you lived here for your whole like school...
My whole teenage years. My mom still lives
years.
here.
Your mom still lives here?
She still lives here. She's got very nice neighbours.
Really?
Yeah, they check in on her.
Nice.
Whenever I talk to my mom, I'm always worried about my mom being lonely, and then like I text her and she's like going to her writing groups and she's going to her folk club. She's meeting up with her pal, Maureen.
Awesome.
Or Bernadette.
Nice.
And I'm like, fuck, she's got more pals than me. She's like more sociable. She lives in the exact same house, double glazed.
Nice.
I live in Edinburgh now. They don't double glaze for shit, and I'm just like.
Well, I used to live elsewhere in Govan, and it is a list. I think it is a listed building, and it was single glazing, and it was right on the water, and it's crazy.
I don't know. What do I remember from being a child in Govan? I remember I spent a lot of time in the parks. Me and my sister and her friend, we used to build dens in Elder Park. Because there's that bit in the middle of Elder Park we've got Isabella Elder.
Yes.
Climb on her a lot of fun.
It's a great park.
It's a decent park. It's got those weird ruins that I don't know what they are or what they're for.
I think I was told by somebody that was like a house for someone that was like maybe like a groundskeeper or somebody who like maintained a park or something. But they are kind of like weird ruins.
Because it's like that's the groundskeeper's house.
I don't know. Hey, maybe we used to look after our groundskeepers in this country.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a beautiful house. It's like a really gorgeous set of ruins that you're not meant to run about on, but we did obviously.
Yeah.
I remember. We had a den. In that bit where Isabella Elder is, because there's all those bushes.
Yeah.
Bushes used to be a lot bigger. I remember being in the bushes one time, hiding in hide and seek, and I came across a man and a lady in the bushes, and I was like, "Oh, hi," and they were like, "Bye." I was being normal.
You're in my den.
Yeah, they were in my den. And they were shagging, which and also that's so grotty. Like, I'm sorry, that's so Elder Park's like it's a bit grotty, and they were like shagging in it.
It's as grotty as most public parks.
I think
it didn't used to be. Maybe it used to be grottier.
I think it used to be grottier. I also think that
I didn't realise that's what you meant by bushes were bigger back then.
Yeah, whoa!
Such a cheap gag from me.
So fucking, it's fine. I went along with it.
God bless you.
Whoa. Yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa. I remember. I don't know how much you want me to say about Govan. I remember there was like an old guy.
As much as you want.
There was an old guy that used to go about.
I'm trying to write about it.
And I don't want to be mean to him at all. Right, okay, I'll just chat away then. Like, I feel bad because, like, this was probably, like, a totally harmless, like, old guy. His name was Old Whitey, and he just used to go about, like, screaming.
Okay.
And like, everybody, like, had, like, stories about him.
Yeah.
Like, that he was, like... But, like, all the kids would be like, oh, he, like, is gonna, like, kidnap you, or whatever.
Right, yeah,
like,
yeah.
But I don't think there was, like, any evidence for that whatsoever.
I mean, yeah, there was a man who ran a shed business next to me where I grew up, and he was, like, next to, like, my primary school, and he was, like, our local, like, scary old man who was gonna, like, kidnap you or shoot you if he, like, saw you. You know?
Yeah.
But we, like, never really saw him, and he didn't walk around shouting at people, so it was more of like it was more mythic than
Than Old Whitey.
Yeah, it's kind of like the man who like grits the paths in Home Alone. It's the same.
I've never seen Home Alone.
That's for a different. That's a discussion. For a
different conversation.
But yeah, that's valid. That's
yeah, because you can sort of like stagger about and you say,
you're not like judging that person for like what they.
One more thing you know is if for some reason any of Old Whitey's family are listening right now, to be clear, like
I would bet money on it that they're
strongly doubt.
It's also they would also be like, yeah, that's what he's like.
It's probably. I mean, he's definitely dead.
Yes.
Yeah, he's definitely dead by
right.
now.
Okay.
Yeah. We also had the Welks candied apples guy.
What's that?
This is like I think. Oh God, there's a guy. Right, this isn't helpful at all. Because someone.
Welks what apples?
Is this
cavented?
Right. So
is that the word you said?
Candied.
Oh, candied.
So what you used to hear,
apples.
what you would hear is like I would just be in my bedroom and there would just be someone outside, and he would just like be walking up the street, and apparently this was a thing across like Glasgow, I think. So I thought that you were going to know about this, and I didn't know what he was saying.
No, I'm not from Aberdeen.
You're from Aberdeen.
I'm from Aberdeen. I'm from Glasgow. Yeah.
Fair enough.
No, I know. You know that I'm not from Glasgow. I'm from Aberdeen.
I now know that. See, part of the reason I thought you might know about it is that there is someone, and I've completely blanked on his name. He's very funny, and I know that he knows a lot of people in Scottish comedy, but he doesn't do comedy himself. But I think he does sketches, and he did a sketch which included this guy. And I don't understand. I don't know. What it would sound like to me from like in my bedroom was basically someone, he would just like shout two things and then he would shout a third thing and he would go and he would just repeat it. He'd go. It just sounded like the two noises. So it would go like, candied apples.
Right. Okay.
And what I've since learned is the first thing he shouts is Welks.
Welks. And what's the second thing?
I've forgotten what the second thing is. I think like you can look it up. I think that if you googled like Welks candied apples Glasgow. Now I'm fully like, have I dreamed this? Have I dreamed all of this? Oh, I think it's mussels. I think it's Welks mussels candied apples.
Oh, Welks mussels and Welks. I've heard of that before. Welks mussels and candied apples /Glasgow.
Yeah. And it's like, I remember seeing this sketch and being like, oh my God, someone else knows. Because it's one of those things that like just happens when you're a kid and you just sort of like, okay, I guess that's happening.
Bygone Glasgow. Does anyone remember this geezer? Used to walk all over the East End with little plastic bags full shouting, Welks, mussels and candied apples. And the kids would come running down the flats to see him. Late 90s, early 2000s. Does not sound like something from the late 90s, early 2000s. It sounds like something that, you know, like a boomer auntie would post being like, things were better when the candied apples, man.
Oh my God. I need boomers to start doing like, just like sneak in like something like fully just unhinged.
Yeah, it'd be like, you know, like, yeah. Sort of like, it looks like shit posting memes, but then you're like, oh no, this is someone's like, this is a sincere meme.
Yeah, but there's just one, and it can't be like too wild. I don't know, boomers out there, get on it.
Well,
he's saying the East End, so this guy must have been all over the city.
Or maybe it was
more than
it's
one
a job.
person. What job?
It's a line of work.
But it's just like, no one ever explained it.
Welks
mussels,
do you know
candied
what a
apples.
whelk is?
It's like it's a shellfish, right?
Okay. Mussels, also
shellfish, and also candied apples. That's a meal.
Okay, right.
You've got fruit. That's all the main food groups.
Right. What?
Candied apples. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that would you remembered that.
Welks mussels, candied apples.
Right,
yeah. You should get that as a tattoo.
You should get it as you should get it as a tattoo.
Yeah. Conversation started. Imagine at the beginning of this.
People
like,
be like, bring that back!
Apples.
Bring that back, more of that.
Yeah. And you'd be like, what's this tattoo you've got? Yes. So yeah, I remember that guy a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
So you'd be like, you'd hear somebody shout and you'd be like, is that all whitey or is that the or is that the candied apple?
Candied apples guy? But I never approached the candied apple guy because he didn't sound safe.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like, that sounds like someone who I really want to go and like get candied apples from.
No.
I was nearly, I was one time fully, I think the police did check it out and it was legit just a guy, like a lonely guy who probably wasn't going to murder me. But I did once have a guy like in Alder Park being like, hey, I've got a daughter back home who will play games with you.
Okay.
Sort of thing. Yeah, try to get me back to his house. And
Jesus fucking Christ.
yeah. And it was fully like...
When you were like, I was nearly once, well, more like fully, well, the police said, actually, I was like, what happened to you?
yeah.
Right, okay.
And I fully remember it
Jesus.
because I remember I went home and I was chatting to my sister about it and like we were having a laugh about it basically, and then my dad got home and my mom was like, and my sister was like, oh, Roisin made a friend, and he was like, oh really? And then she told her and he's like, we need to call the police right now.
Oh,
like, yeah. So
Thank God you're alright.
yeah. You know
About
what they
this?
used to have in Asda Govan? They used to have a big cow, like fake cow's head, like a plastic cow's head, and like a plastic chicken, and you could press a button and it would go.
I
You're all throughout the
remember.
shop.
Oh my God, this is such a key memory. I remember in my Asda in Aberdeen that there was next to like the dairy and the chickens, there was it wasn't a cow's head, it was a full cow. A side-on cow. I don't remember a chicken or a button. I think it was just... But
Just a big cow.
Yeah, it was just a big cow. It like made up to... And it was like... Yeah, there was a bit of like perspex or whatever, and it was made to look like a sort of shed or a barn or something like that. Bring that back.
Bring that back.
More like ornaments.
Yeah,
in
bring back the butt, because they got rid of it in Asda Govan. I also, because I sometimes think about like how like integral like Asda Govan was like to like my growing up and like
Absolutely.
yeah, and there's
this is the
people-
stuff I really want to get into.
there's people who like experience, sometimes I think about the fact that there's people who experience Asda Govan for the first time. You know? Like they or like who didn't grow up with an Asda Govan.
No.
Some people, I mean, Asda's so rare. I thought Asda was gonna like quicksand, like I was gonna like see a lot more of it in my life, but no,
Oh, I
never
see.
go to Asda now.
No, because
And-
it's in it's like the center of like very built up areas for like where people actually like live, where like loads and loads of people
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
You're not getting any Asda Expresses and Asda Metro.
No, and like I don't even know where the Asda is in Edinburgh. You know,
There is one I've been to, but I cannot tell you where it is.
tell me where it is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
I think
okay.
they're just there like, we're gonna stay in our lane.
Yeah, they know who
We're
they are.
We're a supermarket, and that's what we don't fuck around with.
I respect that.
Yeah,
They're not
have a
looking
lot
to
of
like
respect for
dominate.
that.
Like
Yeah.
they're just happy with who they are.
Yeah,
We could learn a lot from Asda.
absolutely. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, Asda. I know what you mean. That Asda features way more prominently because I
Yeah.
lived like a 5 to 6 minute walk from an Asda, and I would just be there. You're just like there loads with your parents, or like by yourself. And stuff.
Yeah, and they're often 24 hours.
Yeah, well, that one is 20. That one is
Yeah.
24 hours, and I go there like semi regularly. So you must have seen it change a lot.
Man, over the years, man. Nah, it's still like when I was just a wee. Except they got rid of the cow and the chicken, and I just why would you do
They
that?
surely didn't have They surely didn't have used to have an escalator with an upstairs bit. when you were growing up.
No. When I was
Sure.
that was a new thing.
No.
And they used to have a
Supermarkets
Toys
used
R
to be
Us
all on one floor. There used to be a Toys R Us there.
next to it. Yeah, there used to be
Where
a Toys R
B&M
Us.
is.
Where B&M is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine I cannot imagine living that close to a Toys R Us.
Yeah.
That must be both a gift and a curse.
Well, we were kind of too poor for new toys, but we did
That's
used
the curse.
to.
That's the curse part.
Yeah, that was the curse.
Yeah.
But we did used to go and explore the Toys R Us a whole bunch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would your mum be like, You go in Toys R Us, I'll go into Asda, I'll come back and get you.
No, she just used to kind of leave us outside.
Outside the Toys R
Yeah,
Us?
outside the Toys R Us. We used to make our own fun a lot. Like, my sister used to, like, make up a lot of games. That was, like, what we did. Because I remember we were next to, it was before, like, there was a point where between us and the Toys R Us, there was just, like, a big sort of, like wasteland. And, I don't know, I have memories of that, but I'm not sure, like,
Okay.
we weren't meant to be in there.
Right.
I don't know, like, my sister would come up with a lot of great games,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she would just leave us outside. We very, very rarely went into the Toys R Us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which now I look back on it, like, why? But, yeah, I actually don't have that. I think I had, like, a sense that Toys R Us wasn't really a place I was meant to go.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean by that. That it's like, you kind of get the sense that you're like, people are coming in here and children are coming in here and they're not window shopping in here nearly as much as I am.
Yeah, it's like, what am I going to buy?
Yeah,
You know?
it's like, it's more like, what am I going to buy? Not being like,
I don't have a bank card.
I'm just going to look at.
Yeah.
Or the children with more money would be like, we'll be just looking at stuff with a much different mindset, with a way different mindset,
That's
and just
true.
be like, I'm just going to go look at stuff because that's all I could really hope for.
We did used to do that with the pet store. We used to go in and like look at like
Oh,
hamsters and
right,
stuff.
okay. Did
Yeah.
you have pets growing up?
Yeah, we had fish. And then when I got older, we had hamsters. I killed a fish one time.
Do you want to talk about it?
No, I don't think so. I
That's
still have a lot of
fine.
guilt around it.
Oh.
It was at that, when you're like young and you're just like discovering the world and you're just
like
discovering.
you're pushing boundaries.
You're pushing boundaries. You're discovering like other creatures like have like, yeah.
Different tolerances for.
Yeah,
Air?
I feel real bad about it. I feel really bad
You
about
shouldn't.
it. I did
Okay.
also I did once find a bunch of kittens in a bin, with their mum. The mum was
Uh-huh.
there. Yeah, the mum had just like had this litter of kittens in the bin. Like me and my
It's
friend
like from
found
a
them.
cartoon.
Yeah.
Was it like a Top Cat bin?
No.
No.
It was in a midden. Like it was like kind of behind the metal bins in a midden.
Okay.
Yeah, it was down on near Elder Park. It wasn't like around my house. It was like a bit further up. And it was my friends. Like we were like in her back garden, like playing around the middens. Because that was the other thing. Like if you were like,
middens. I mean, I've heard the
well, if you were playing in the back garden, the back garden was where the middens were. So you play around the middens.
What is a midden? Just a mess.
A midden is where you put the fucking bins.
Oh yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah, but like I mean, they're built to be played on. To be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I've never heard somebody use the word a midden in conversation. I've only heard somebody be like, it's like a midden in here, describing my bedroom like when I'm growing up. But yeah, they are. Oh, you mean the brick things that house the bins?
Yes, that was.
And
what
they
the midden.
are meant to be played on. And what is quite funny is that the kids here, because that's like the back court for like the whole block, as you well know, from living literally on this block, that the kids will just like play on top of the bins.
Yeah, that's what
and they'll
we
just
do.
like run out. But there's no middens here. There's no like actual brick things. It's just like bits where the bins are. So they will just like run on top of the bins, and it's like it's so noisy.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. It
It's
probably
so noisy.
breaks the bins.
Yeah. So you found.
Yeah, we found these kittens, and then I went.
And what happened to them?
Well, I went into school, and then I mentioned that I found these kittens, and then like.
Did you not mention it to your mum or dad immediately?
I probably did, but I mean, it was like, what are they gonna do? Because it wasn't in my back garden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was somewhere else.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was just like, oh, there's a cat and some kittens. I mean, it's stray kittens. Probably should have called the. I don't know, man. I didn't have a plan.
Yeah, I'm not.
I was just
holding
in
you to
school,
account.
and I was like, oh, I found these kittens, and then like these girls were like, we have to rescue the kittens, but there wasn't really any plans for the mum, so we like made this plan to go and get the kittens, and then as we were getting the kittens from the mum, it became quite clear the kittens didn't really want to leave their mum, and the mum didn't really want to lose the kittens, and that was a real moral like thing for me where I was like now under a lot of pressure from these girls to like
take these cats. I think someone called like Animal Protection Services.
Right.
But there was a point where some people had taken some kittens from a cat.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
It was sad. I have like a very strong memory of like I was trying to like stamp on some bugs that were like around the, like on the midden floor, and like the cat like kind of like moved back and its ears went flat, and I was like, oh, I have a capacity for empathy, and I recognize that the cat is sad. The cat's sad. The cat was sad because the kittens were taken. Yeah.
And where did the cat go?
I don't know. I don't really remember much. I remember I was really upset.
It's hard to be asked about these things because you're like, I'm just getting.
I have a memory like in isolation.
It's a montage.
Yeah.
My memory is just montage at that point. It's not linear, and that's not because of like neurodivergence or
it's just because like you have certain things which you remember more as a child.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure that an adult at some point got involved and was like, we're gonna call the RSPCA. Like this is ridiculous. It's not the job of these like 10-year-olds to like work out what to do with this cat. That was like kind of managing fine within the midden.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't my idea. Either.
No. So people didn't believe that you're from Govan.
Yeah.
And you are feeling other in Govan because you've not got is
probably in my life.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. But do you think that's because people have a certain expectation of what the sort of people living in this era is like, and do you think that is like? I don't even think I'm quite exactly asking you a question here, but I'm just like, that's. Because there are some stereotypes are true, but then I think that like that's also unfair.
I mean, it's usually people from Govan or like working class people who are like.
You're not from.
Yes.
Right, okay,
yeah.
I see.
I once when I was because I have a thing where like I'll like take a lot and then I'll like explode. So when I was like 9. This girl called Kelly, in case she's listening, she's a bitch. Anyway, she was an arsehole. But she was we were just like I think the teacher had made a joke that wasn't at my expense, but when talking to me about people being snobs, but it wasn't about me. It was just like I think like for some reason the royal family were mentioned or like the Queen was mentioned or something, Kelly, we were in music class and Kelly was fucking next to me and she was bringing up her like notes in front of her face and she was calling me a snob. She was going, "Snob, you're a snob," and she kept saying it.
But hiding her mouth.
Yeah, hiding her mouth.
Prove that she did it.
I don't know. I don't know. Kids do stuff.
I
don't know how like thought through it is. Mm-hmm. Like she was just like doing that and like she kept doing it until eventually like I slapped her. In front of the class. And also in front of the teacher.
Will Smith style.
I was like, keep your
Stop calling me a snob.
Yeah. Out your goddamn mouth.
Would a snob do this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the vibe. Like,
Would an uptight, middle class perceived person fucking tell you to shut the fuck
and slap you? Yeah. It's verbatim what I said.
Yeah.
And then obviously
like that in school as well.
Yeah, and then obviously
which isn't healthy. To bottle things up until.
But it's also like what am I supposed to do?
Of course,
you know. Sure. So like then I took it like the teacher like kind of took me outside and he was like, "What was that about?"
She was like, "That was fucking awesome."
Yeah. Well, this is it. This was a teacher. I don't know about like using people's real names.
You can just make something up.
It happened like this specific teacher. It happened a couple of times because like most of the teachers like
the slapping or the.
No, where something happened. Like, I think like there was a kid called like fucking Kyle, and he was like this was the same teacher. He was like, "Oh, you wouldn't ever swear," and I was like, "Yeah, I would." Classic. And he was like, all right then, swear. And I said, fuck. And then he was like, ah. But yeah, like, that the same teacher, like, you know, he took me outside and he was like, why did you swear? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, just forget about it. Like, and that happened, like, it was the same with, like, when I slapped Kelly, like, he was just sort of like, all right, you know, like, this isn't, like, he could see, like, what the dynamic was.
Yeah, that must be hard for teachers.
Yeah.
That not only do you have to do that, but you have to like monitor dynamics and class politics and hierarchy, which you cannot do.
Yeah.
You cannot do, and that's changing every time a class comes in and out and in and out. If it in like high school as well, but that you're like, this is so beyond my control, but it is influencing how these kids interact, behave, and also learn. Crucially.
Yeah.
I'm interested. And thanks so much for talking about like Govan and stuff like that. And I can imagine what it's like. It's just like kids are mean. Kids are horrible, and if you're like not like because when I first moved here, I was kind of like, oh yeah, like people said that it's, you know, like a sort of like rough area or whatever, and then there was like for maybe like a couple of weeks where I was kind of like sort of a bit more like just really self-aware, and then I was like, people can see that, and people can like see that about you if you carry yourself in that way, and then I've just become way more relaxed and super comfortable here.
100%. Like what I always say with Govan is it's like, it's not that violent. It's not like, I've heard people like talk about it like it's a fucking Wild West. It's fine. It's just like, it's just like, there's just not a lot here.
It's just
and there's just a lot of poverty.
It's an area of poverty. Yeah,
like there's just a lot of poverty, but it's not like, you know, people aren't like fucking like burning the houses down or anything. And I mean, even like as a teenager, you know, like I had a lot of friends who lived out in like Giffnock and like Newton Mearns. I remember one time I was having a party and they were proper, like a couple of them were like, oh, like if I go to Govan, am I gonna get stabbed? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I've survived 18 years here and not being stabbed.
Yes, like, it's not an anomaly. Yeah,
it's usually, it's fine. You know,
because and then but then you like see stuff that confirms like stereotypes, but then you're kind of like, oh, but I'm just gonna take that without a pinch of salt and stuff like that. And a thing that I've like trying to talk about as well is that like I know all my neighbours and I really like them and get on well with them, and that's not the same for when I lived like I lived off Byers Road, and then I lived in like Cathcart as well, like which is since I left, it's like shot up in like value like houses and stuff. There, and I would not say the same thing, that I knew all of my neighbours and was on speaking terms.
Yeah, I have a thing about Govan where because there was a while where
there's like a more of like a sense of community here.
I'm not altogether sure, but I do have a lot of feeling about like I don't know, like there's like nice buildings and stuff. Like there's parts of it which are like, I suppose earlier when I was talking about like Elder Park being like minging, like part of that. So for example, I do like my women's history videos, and I was wanting to do.
I wanted to talk to you about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I put down Scottish history. You know a lot about Scottish history, but you specifically do like women's history. I'm
interested. Well, yeah, it's more like I want to highlight stories that have like just historically been left out of the narrative. That's kind of the vibe. Govan's got some really interesting history. It's got all like the Viking stones and everything. And obviously it's got like the rent strikes, right? It's got the rent strikes in Mary Barber.
There's a blue plaque. You can see a blue plaque from our bedroom window.
I've made a video about Mary Barber, and we couldn't actually use the footage because it was like COVID and all this like funding had been cut to like clean the city. So like it was looking grim, man. It was looking real gross, and I was like, this is a shame.
You didn't want to put the
I kind of wanted to show like how Govan like could like actually be nice and like have some cool stuff to it, and like I actually wanted to like sort of showcase it a bit, and I was like, oh, but because it's not been getting cleaned, it's like filthy right now, and that was it. So
that's just all of Glasgow.
That's
just all of Glasgow. Every time my girlfriend comes back from Edinburgh, just like I cannot believe how much tidier and cleaner Edinburgh is than.
Do you know what's wild about Edinburgh? The pigeons like don't look upsetting. Like there's straight up a difference between like Glasgow and Edinburgh pigeons.
Right, okay.
yeah. Like Edinburgh pigeons, like they've got like shiny coats and they're all like sort of like
the green and the purple is shiny.
And it's like I don't know. You sort of have to remind yourself about like the diseases, whereas in Glasgow you don't like you look at a pigeon and you're like, oh your life is not worth living. Like you, oh man, like you need to be put down. Like that's the thing I noticed after COVID.
So you do your Scottish Women's videos,
that was I was like keen to talk about Mary Barber and probably like Isabella Elder and people like that. My mum was one of the people that got a statue of Mary Barber.
At the subway?
Yeah.
Really?
She was like one on the like campaign.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and she does like volunteer stuff with there's a group. I mean, there's always been like interesting stuff in Govan as well. Like there's a group that they work on like they did like a lot of stuff about the rent strikes and about like Scottish suffragettes and getting them more recognised, because when we talk about the suffragettes we usually talk about the English ones and we don't really talk about what the Scottish ones were doing, but there was a lot of like really cool stuff going on. And then we've got like the radio station, like you know, if you're like in Govan and you like want to have like, you know, experience in like being a radio DJ, you can do it. Like it's there. Like they had a Plantation Productions here for ages. That was like basically like a film company that would work with people in the community. And like I know loads of people that like, you know, maybe wrote their first scripts or had their first like, you know, experience like working with a camera like through Plantation. Like there's some really good stuff.
Yeah.
There's
also the acting school here.
I didn't know about that.
It's on Harmony Row.
Yeah, that might be maybe what Plantation became or something, because I think they might have been in Harmony Row.
It has like a little like a black box theatre.
Yeah, like I don't know. There's always been interesting stuff. I do wonder what's going to happen after they build the bridge.
The bridge, yeah, because
that's going to be Student City after that.
I think it's interesting because they're building the flats at the shopping centre, and they're building flats on Water Row, and then there's the bridge as well. And it's just because of the housing crisis, and people in the West End is going to sort of like extend into Govan in terms of like people wanting to access the people who have business, whether that be studying or working in the West End.
But they get like the cheap houses here.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's what I was getting to, is I have this thing with Govan where I want it to be nicer, but I don't want anyone to know about it.
Yeah, so you don't want you're like, how can this be improved so that there are services and things for people to do here without it being gentrified?
Yeah.
And how does that happen when it is an area of deprivation?
Yeah, I think poor people should have nice things.
Deserve to have stuff.
There used to be a youth club here called Govan Pals.
Okay, that's cute.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Don't remember that much about it. I know the building it was in, and then that became Gaia Pals for some reason, and no one called it Gaia Pals, which seems like and there was a gang. There was a Govan gang. Don't know if they're still running the Crossley Posse.
I've not heard of them.
It was just like a group of guys, and I suppose girls as well.
Teens or adults?
Teens, but then they aged into adults, and then they're younger. As teens do, and then they're younger. Obviously, like the younger siblings became of gang age, so they were the young Crossley Posse.
Right.
YCP.
And what's Crossy?
Oh, Crossland Road. So it's because they were on Crossland Road.
Where's that?
It is sort of like the Govan side of Craigton Road.
Okay.
It's quite a big street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's near Elder Park.
Okay.
Oh. My phone is observing that my butt is not my fingerprints.
It's a keen observation.
Keen observation.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if I'll. I don't think. I think what we've kind of shown is that your experience of growing up here is obviously completely different from my experience of living here as an adult, and yeah, I think that sometimes that these conversations that I'm going to have are going to be more like providing like conclusions to stuff in the sort of like storytelling aspect of the show, I think. And because the other thing is, in my like the material, it's kind of what I'm wanting to do is kind of like, you know, do local stuff but really lean into it in like a meaningful way, and not just like do sort of surface level stereotype.
You should talk about the Crossy Posse.
Bullshit.
You should definitely talk about Welsh Muscles Candied Apples, guy.
But that's not my story to tell.
No.
And I'm wanting to be very like aware of that.
Already.
So but you lived on this street, right?
Yeah, for 6 months.
For 6 months. Was that just like your first time living away from home?
No, I just moved back. This was such a bad situation. It wasn't. It was fine.
Because now I want to talk about where else you've lived.
So I've lived in York, which is where I went to uni. And
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why York?
Because that's where I went to uni. Sorry. No, they did a theatre course that I wanted to do. And then I was on the theatre course and I was like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
But it was, that was $9,000.
Why? So what was specific about the theatre course?
It looked very comprehensive. It was writing, directing and performance. And I was at that time, I think I just decided that I wanted to be an actress when I was 7. But I didn't have like talent.
So you'd always wanted to do...
I think I've always wanted to be the centre of attention.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. I'm having... When you're like, thank you so much for coming through, and I'm like, I love this. I like being listened to and everyone else having to shut up.
What?
Yeah, it's a theatre in York. York's a really weird town. York's really, really strange. It's a really strange place.
David Collins said that it was like, it had like a reputation for being like quite a sort of like quirky place, or it's or I don't know if it's trying to do
full
that.
Of geese. Like you're just walking about and there's just like the bus has to stop because there's like ducks crossing the road and because the York campus, the York City campus, the York University campus is separate to the city and it's literally in a park. So I think it's like the largest man-made lake in England or something.
Wow.
Yeah, don't quote me on that, but it's some kind of largest something.
So there's a lot of like water birds.
Yeah, a lot of wildlife, like swans chasing people. Like I've had to fight geese before. I fully had to like hit a goose with my bag. And the thing is, like, if you kill any of the wildlife, like you are expelled. If you like kill a duck. I mean, why would you kill a duck?
Why would you kill a duck?
Why would you kill a duck? Yeah, I remember there were these like 2 black swans, and they were like bastards. And they would like terrorize people, and like people would be trying to get out of their accommodation, and the swan would be like snapping at them, and they would have to like...
Geese, actually, I've just remembered what geese are, and they are scary.
Yeah.
They hiss, right? They hiss.
And there's a big swarm of them. There's a big swarm of them. You're walking through your campus, and there's literally, I'm not joking, 35 fucking geese, and they're like...
And you're just trying to get to...
You just try to get... I mean, after the first year, you're like, I'm just going to go the long way around.
Okay.
Like, I'm just not going to fight this, like... But sometimes because you'd have events, like, on campus, and you're sitting on the grass, and you just see, like, this big group of geese, and you're like, they better keep their distance. We need to move.
We need to move.
Oh my god, because they're super... Because they have their babies, and they're super protective of their babies as well.
How long were you in York for?
3 years.
For 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. And then what did you... and then you didn't like the course and left.
Oh, well, 3 years is the length of the course.
Oh, 3 years
yeah.
is the length.
Yeah. They do 3-year degrees in England.
What was it like?
Learning amongst the English.
A bit of that, but also like, what is York like apart from outside of the campus and there being loads of angry birds?
So it's like really little. A lot of it is medieval. So there's like some Viking stuff there and a bunch of Roman stuff there.
Did you become interested in history from, do you think, part of from
Not
that? Or
really.
Was that before in school?
No. It was really after. It was when I started being a tour guide.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was when it became important to my livelihood.
Yeah.
No, I think I was interested in culture generally, and I hadn't really thought that much about like how like specifically history, which is very stupid now saying it out loud, but like I hadn't really thought that much about like, oh yeah, if you want to understand culture, you have to understand history.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, for me it's more like an interest in like communication and cultural narrative that I'm into, more than like kind of just history. But yeah, so yeah, it's got a big city wall. It's got a street that's from the 1400s called the Shambles. When I was there, the big nightclub that everyone went to, you had all these like nightclubs that had like student nights, and they were all sort of trying to be like proper nightclubs.
Yeah.
And then at some point in like your first term, someone would be like, "Let's go to Willow." And you were like, "What the fuck's Willow?" And Willow was the only club that was open till 4 a.m. And it started out as a Chinese restaurant that would turn into a nightclub at nighttime.
Wow.
Then it had its hygiene license taken away. So it was just a nightclub, and it was literally like a big room, like just like one big room. They had like the and like a DJ playing like sort of like mix, like basically just like pop, like just like standard pop, and absolutely like disgusting toilets. And a little section at the top where where like with all the restaurant chairs and stuff out. It had very cheap like shots of like Zambuca and like vodka and stuff and wine.
I would have had you more like down going to like the alternative club.
Was it really an alternative club?
Yeah, there's not
And
enough.
also,
There's not enough. Places.
This will get me cancelled. No, I can't be bothered with alternative places because they just play the same music every
Right,
week.
sure, that's a.
Because I did go to the
point.
Catty a lot as a teenager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to Catty Unders.
So I've never been there because I'm a grown adult.
Yeah, you can still like, things which should be illegal but aren't. Going to an unders club if you're over 18.
So that's like, I've never like talked to anyone about this. So it's like a goth club.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I mean, I don't know really what it's like now because I've not.
That
been.
would be the equivalent. The equivalent would have been Mashulu in Aberdeen, which I also never
Fair
went to,
enough.
but
What it was supposed to be is upstairs was punk music.
it doesn't help that the golf club has literally mosh in the title. Well, it doesn't doesn't help the reputation, but also for connotations, you're like, I guess that must be the golf place.
Moshers.
So you used to go to you used to go to the Catty.
The Catty, yeah. So upstairs was meant to be punk, and then downstairs was meant to be metal. But then as
Where
time.
were you?
I was just with my pals, man. Like, it was because my friends liked it. Like, that was it. And I ended up liking some of the music. When I was a teenager, I got really into Rage Against the Machine and System of a Down.
Yeah.
Were like the two that I was actually into, and also Avenged Sevenfold for some reason, which is like, I don't know, I'm not as proud of that one as because I feel like System of a Down and Rage Against the Machine are like two solid choices for teenage music liking.
Yeah.
And also make a lot of sense with me, and then I'm like, oh yeah, and also this weird Christian band with like a lot of their songs have rapey overtones. Not maybe this is probably just the one, but still. Yeah, but it was getting controversial. Everyone was saying that they weren't playing like the proper the proper music anymore, like proper metal goth music.
Okay.
I don't know. And like all my pals would really just go to the smoking area. A lot of people just like getting off with each other. A lot of like it was interesting because it was very normal for everyone to be bisexual. So it was very, very normal.
Catty Unders.
Yeah, Catty Unders. So lots of girls kissing girls and lots of boys kissing boys.
Okay.
Girls and lots of like, I don't know, I remember one time like a bunch of people I knew like did like a 5-way pool. Like,
wow.
Yeah, like they all like horrible to look at. Yeah, they would do stuff like that. No drugs whatsoever. Very drugless place.
Well, we don't have booze, and we don't have
Yeah. So we're just like experimenting weirdly. I remember.
How many people can kiss at the same time?
Yeah, I think it got up to 7. Horrible. And I mind because I remember the first time I kissed a girl in a club that wasn't a goth club, and people lost their shit. Like people went insane. insane, and like we had like these guys dancing around us, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I brought this up before.
Was this in York? Was this
that was in York?
Was that at Willow?
No, I think it was in a place called Fibbers.
That tracks for Fibbers.
Yeah, standard Fibbers. Wouldn't have happened in Willow.
No. There is a thing about going to uni where you're just like, there's something really interesting about just like your sort of like survival instinct where you're like, I have to go out of my comfort zone. Where you're like, if I want to make friends with people or like not be alone, I have to go out of my comfort zone. And I will go to like a pop nightclub.
I wasn't like that. I didn't have a comfort zone, man. I talked to everybody. I got bullied for being too friendly.
Was that just always the case?
In York, yeah.
Oh, in York.
So I was a person that this was embarrassing. I friended everyone on Facebook before I went. And when I turned up, everyone knew who I was, and they called me Kino.
I can understand that you like friended everyone on Facebook a little bit because you're kind of like, I'm just.
I think for me, there was definitely an element of like, I was leaving high school. I think this is very common for like people who like were high achievers. Is like you're leaving high school and you're going to go to university and everything's going to be different at university, and then you go to university and things are very much the same. Yeah, like high achievers. That's what happens. And it was also like a learning curve for me to realize like, oh shit, everyone here is smart.
Really.
Yeah, which I think again is like a thing, like especially if you're like from a working class background and you are like the person in your school who, you know, is like one of like the high achievers, and then you like go and you find out that like actually lots of people, most people if they're like in like middle class backgrounds, they've been like sort of given the tools to be in like it's just that like, you know, you basically just like hit a lottery essentially. York's an interesting place. One thing that I would say about it, the Willow, the other thing about it is that they would give out free prawn crackers throughout the night. So a guy would just come out and with like a big tub of prawn crackers, and like you've got all these like fucking drunk 19-year-olds and they're just like eating prawn crackers. And
the floor must have been so crunchy.
Horrible. And like there was this place around the corner called Dusk, so you do Dusk then Willow, because Dusk Monday to Friday did 2 for 1 on cocktails, and the cocktails were a $5 and they were very strong. They had this cocktail called the Beelzebub, and it was basically every dark spirit with Coke.
Wow.
Real delicious.
Wow.
Real delicious. I remember going to a brief like habit of like putting Disaronno in my tea in the morning while I was in York. More just because like, I don't know, drinking's fun and also tastes nice.
When you're young and you can just do what
and also being aware of like, in other contexts this would be full on alcoholism.
Yes.
But you know, it's contextual.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what York is like. The other way that I would describe York.
What are people like there?
So I didn't necessarily.
Do you feel like you didn't get to a sense of like?
Yeah, because you don't really meet that many locals because you're like outside, you're in the campus. The other thing which I feel like really sums up York is that there was this really lovely little vegan cafe called Goji's, and right next to the vegan cafe was a gun shop that also sold Nazi memorabilia. So that was weird.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were like just a couple doors down from each other.
Wow.
And I always felt like if I was gonna like describe York to someone,
that's right next to it.
that would be it. Yeah. They had like shirts up which were like Hitler's World Tour, and then like all the places that Hitler invaded.
Whoa.
Yeah, fucking dark. And like I think there was basically like some newspaper articles about it where it's like people are real angry about this guy who's like blatantly a Nazi. Yeah. So, but obviously like freedom of speech. So like, I guess we all just have to be like, nah.
Yeah.
And like the local anarchists would like graffiti it and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you moved, you finished it there, and then where did you live after that?
I moved back here in 2013, and I lived here until 2015, and then, if you responded to York the way that you did, I lived in Prague for a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Because I think I wrote lived abroad ?
Yeah, I lived in Prague. I've got like a tattoo of Prague on my back that I got done at Love
Is
tattoo.
that what that is?
Yeah.
I think I've seen like a shape on your back before, and I've been like, I wonder, what is that?
What is that?
Yeah.
It's just like...
Why did you live in Prague?
I've always thought Prague sounded cool. I was gonna go with my boyfriend at the time, and he broke up with me. So I was like, I guess I'm moving to Prague on my own now. And I was really depressed in my job. I hated my job. And I'd saved up a lot of money. So I was just like, I'm gonna go teach English in Prague. I did that for you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what's that? Where is Prague?
Really? Where do you think Prague is? I'm just curious. I'm not trying to like be mean to you. I'm genuinely like curious where you think Prague is.
I need to answer this more quickly. Austria?
You're not too far.
That was not what I was originally going to say.
What were you originally going to say?
I was going to be like Czechoslovakia.
It's the capital of the Czech Republic.
Yes!
Like-
yes, okay.
Although the Czechoslovakia...
I was going to say like Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic, and I was like, no, don't say that. And then I was like, Austria. So I'm right.
Yeah, why didn't you say... Why really don't say that?
Just doubting yourself.
Just doubting yourself. I will say, Czechoslovakia no longer exists. It's now Czech Republic and Slovakia.
Yes.
Yeah, they separated in the early 90s. In fact, it's actually now Czechia.
Not in Maya.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I'm quite ignorant about
That's okay.
a lot of stuff.
That's alright.
Yeah. Crucially, it's embarrassing stuff like that.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, wow.
I'm like Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic. They're the same. Yeah. I was getting too confused. No, they're the same place.
They're the same place. Well, Czechoslovakia would be Czech Republic and Slovakia, but they split apart.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a country called Slovakia now, not to be confused with Slovenia.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
That much I know.
And you also have Slovakia is like just a tiny country.
Mm-hmm.
Their capital is Bratislava.
Uh-huh.
I've been through it on a bus.
Okay. So Prague is the capital of the Czech Republic.
CC, amigo.
So what are what are people from Prague like? What are Czech people?
Czechs are...
Because that's very different to York, because you're almost exclusively interacting with locals.
There was a point in York where, because you're on the campus, I was only in town at night time, right? I forgot about children.
Yeah.
I feel like one time I saw some kids on campus and I was like, whoa. What?
Yeah.
Ah!
It's kind of when you get to even younger than ours, but when you're in your mid to late 20s and you get sometimes maybe a job and stuff, and then you're like, oh yeah, the summer holidays, fucking hell, cannot believe I cannot believe that you've forgotten a bit. So what are Czech people like?
No offense to Czech people.
No, they're. By this I mean feel free to just speak.
No, they're cool. The way that I would describe Prague is Prague has Paris's looks and Berlin's personality. It's a great city. It's a really cool.
It's a very good way of summing it up.
It's beautiful, and it's also just very cool with a capital K. It's very trendy. Czech people are, it's hard to sort of, because you've got obviously the older Czechs and the younger Czechs, and the older Czechs, a lot of them have lived with the shadow of communism over them,
right.
So that's a big thing. The thing is, Prague's the kind of place where, the thing is, Scottish history is quite boring, okay? I'll say it. Prague, you can walk around and point out a radio. I was there with my flatmate who was a Czech.
Do you mean recent history?
Wars of Independence and the Jacobites.
I'll
give you an example. So I was walking around Prague with my flatmate last year, and he can just point out a radio station, and he's like, oh yeah, that's the site of this great battle that happened between the Czechs and the Nazis in World War II, where they were hiding out in this radio station and fighting off the Nazis in there, and it's we don't have anything like that here.
No, because I think our home front was very, very different.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's and I'm very glad on one hand that we don't have anything like that here. But I'm just saying that when it comes, a lot of our stuff is religious wars, religious wars and royalism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, there's just often like kind of more going on like on the continent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I am really glad that like we've never been invaded by Nazis though. Gonna touch wood on that one.
Absolutely.
Or by Soviets.
Yeah.
Or anyone, ideally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, really glad.
I get what you mean. Like the history is more like it's more like dynamic or
yeah,
or fun to tell. And look, yeah. And,
yeah, and it's like I don't know. I don't know how much I should really say about like Scottish history, but it's just sort of like when we're getting very into the Jacobites. Like I'm an anti-royalist.
Yeah.
You know, so like for me the Jacobites is about like the religion of the king. That we're going to have, you know, and obviously within that, like, you know, a lot of stuff about like persecution of Catholics, which I get. But it's also like, what religion do you want the guy who like has a divine right to rule over you to have, you know, like, which I like contextually fine, like for the time, but like I'm not really that like excited about it
I
now.
understand. It's not like about you don't identify with the same the cause of the time. So therefore it's not as interesting. But fighting Nazis in a community radio station, you're like I could see that happening in Govan. I grew up with a community radio station. I could see myself doing that.
It might have actually been against the Soviets. It was one of the two.
Sure.
Lots of like revolutions and stuff. Really I mean like, okay, not even, okay, I'm really glad the Nazis were never here, right? There is a place that you can go in Prague where they uncovered a secret underground laboratory from like the 1500s where there was alchemists trying to create like the elixir of universal youth. And there's a tunnel leading directly to Prague Castle.
Wow.
Yeah. You don't get that in Edinburgh. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't, right? You don't, that's what I mean. That's the kind of thing that I mean.
Okay.
You know?
So why, I was going to say, why be a Scottish tour guide? You're like, because I live there, because I know that history.
Yes.
Are you like, do you like?
I mean, it was more that I wanted to be a tour guide.
Yeah.
And I live in Scotland.
Yeah.
You know, that was sort of it.
Yeah.
That was kind of the thing, and it was a much better job than what I had before.
Yeah. And do you try and I mean, this is maybe kind of going back to like the first question, but how do you try and like make what you do different to other tour guides? Do you get told what to talk about and what stops to go to? Or?
History tour, I can do whatever I want.
And do you like that about it?
Yeah, I mean, most people end up doing a lot of the same stuff, but then you do get to a point where you know so much that it's actually, you do end up like, fuck, like what do I talk, you know, you write and you rewrite and you recreate and you're like, oh, I'd like to talk a bit more about this or a bit more about that. I'm really interested in like Celts and like prehistory and early history.
Okay.
I'm really into like Celtic traditions and pagan traditions, but I don't think other people are that interested in that. Yeah, but I'm always like into that kind of stuff. But then I also, I like to get in some sort of like, some, I guess like some extra stuff. It's sort of, it can be hard like trying to get in like particularly like the women's history and things because you are kind of like working with what other tour guides give you, and there's also so much specific context to give to Edinburgh. Like you have to talk about like it being on a hill and why that's important, and about the castle and about the wall and people throwing shit out the window, and you need to talk about St Giles Cathedral and you need to talk about David Hume and the Enlightenment, and like you need to cover all these things basically.
So to then go out of your way to provide context for women's history can sometimes be difficult to
it's
fit
also
everything in.
Yes, especially if it's not on the route.
Yeah.
And then you're having, you know, it's basically what will happen is you're very comfortable with what you've got, and then you have a new thing that you want to talk about, and now you have to like write that in and make it work, and also like work out what you're going to remove, which will like still make the tour work, because there's a structure, you know, there's like a way that I give information so that people can like follow it easily, because
there's a certain school of guides who believe that like a good tour is one that just packs in as much information as humanly possible, and I don't believe that. I think a good tour is one that like people can engage in and walk away like remembering some stuff and like feeling like they know the city better.
Yeah.
And, like,
I think I agree with that.
yeah. And there's ways, don't get me wrong, there's some guys who do that like lots and lots of information thing very, very well. But yeah, I have like very specific ways of like, explaining, for example, the Union of Crowns, and then, which is, that's when Scotland and England started sharing a monarchy.
Okay.
But we weren't like together as like the United Kingdom yet.
Yeah.
I'll explain that, and then like at the next stop I'll explain what the Union of Crowns was, what the Act of Union was when we like got together.
Mm-hmm.
At the stop after that I'm talking about something that happened between those 2 points. Then I'm like, hey, remember I said this thing earlier? And like kind of repeating stuff in a way which isn't repetitive.
Yes.
Yeah, and like contextualizing.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, that sounds like a way that I would like to receive information.
But it takes a long time, man. Like it takes a lot. Like my tour that I do now is very different to what I did in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stops which are basically exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like Greyfriars Bobby is like this. It's the same stop that I've been doing for like 6 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I chopped and changed and added, and like jokes that went in and jokes that came out, and jokes that are just for me that I will continue to do even as like
Why not?
no one ever laughs at them.
You need them. You need them.
Yeah, there's this one joke that literally has got 5% success rate, but when it works, like whoever laughs at it will like really laugh hard.
Yeah.
And it's just this really stupid joke about like it's a pun.
Right.
To my shame, it's a pun because I hate puns, and it's just it's about how like there's this place in the grass market called the Last Drop, and the story goes that people would go there before they would be hung, so that they would have their last drop before they took their last drop.
That's good.
That's not the joke.
Oh.
But that is a joke.
That is a joke.
Or okay, that is a joke, but I didn't write it. But what I followed that up with is, there you go, bit of gallows humour.
I like that less.
Gallows
than
humour!
Last Drop and Last Drop.
Because they're getting hung.
Yeah.
It's a joke about the gallows and also gallows humour.
Yeah. If I was on your tour, I'd be like, I'd be like, oh, she's kind of funny. Yeah.
Okay, at this point it's like an hour and 40 minutes into the tour, so they already know I'm funny. I've already made them laugh.
I think I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, the other jokes have like more of a success rate.
Why did you move back from Prague?
Ran out of money.
Cool. Fair enough.
The English teaching doesn't pay very well.
Right, okay. And why did you move to Edinburgh?
To be a tour guide.
To be a tour guide?
Yeah. I was
So
working,
to be a tour guide.
I was working in disability support, and being like neurodivergent and having a sleep disorder
Really?
didn't really lend itself too well. But yeah, I was just exhausted, and I'd been planning on moving to Edinburgh for a while. Also, I wanted to be there during the Fringe. I didn't want to commute during the Fringe anymore.
That makes perfect
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
so I was like, I just got interested in stand-up.
All right.
So I was like, I'll move to Edinburgh, I'll live in Edinburgh, I'll be there during the Fringe, and I'll be a tour guide. And at the time, I didn't know if I was going to make any money as a tour guide, because it was like the free tours where you pay at the end what you think it's worth.
Yeah.
So I was like prepared to be making like no money, and it is a very well paying job basically.
Yeah.
Like you would be surprised at what people will give to a free tour.
Yeah.
Without being gauche about it. And that like just like the improvement on my mental and physical health is
interacting with loads of people, talking to people, walking around. It sounds like a really good job if you are just like about that lifestyle and
it can be a lot of fun
and a lot of free time
quite a bit of free time, and very flexible because I'm freelance, so I can say like if I've got a gig I can say that I'm not available on Thursday night.
That's good. That's awesome. I am just always intrigued by Glasgow people who move to Edinburgh.
Yeah, I mean it sucks. I hate Edinburgh. I hate it. Sorry. I hate Edinburgh
so much.
Why?
No, I don't mind it. I think that Glasgow people are very down on Edinburgh in a way that's very unfair. I think there's a lot.
And this is such a cliched, like, this is, in some ways, terrible chat, but in other ways, the only chat.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For what I'm talking about, and for what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like, so Glasgow...
People are very down on it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that Edinburgh has to offer. A lot of cool stuff there, a lot that I think that we miss out on as Glaswegians. What I do think is Edinburgh, because Edinburgh Old Town is like built in a way which is like, feels almost deliberately like confusing. So I do actually have a theory that one reason that Glasgow people hate going to Edinburgh so much is because usually if you're going to Edinburgh, you have something that you're trying to get to, you know, like
yes.
You have like a place you have like an interview, you have like something, and then you arrive in Waverley Station and you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then you get into the Old Town, you get onto the Royal Mile and you're like, where do I go?
Yeah.
Like, it's a very like difficult and stressful place to find your way around if you're on your way somewhere and you can't just sort of meander.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like no other street.
Yeah, what I will say in a positive way about Edinburgh is that nowhere else in the world looks like it.
Yeah.
Because there's that stereotype about like any sort of like old European city that you go to. They all, a lot of the time, like, it's like, okay, the river, the new bridge, the old bridge, the big World War II Memorial Square.
Yeah.
It's like nowhere looks like Edinburgh.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very unique looking place, and I really appreciate that about it. I think the buildings have a lot of character to them. My main issue with Edinburgh is basically it's built for visitors. It's built for visitors and it's built for students, and that's not the city's fault. It's not the local. As it's kind of an issue that I have with, I think, how it's kind of been run for a specific kind of profit for a specific kind of person for a long time, and it's very.
How the city has grown, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it prices people out.
Yeah.
You know, and like you get people who are local to the city who like aren't really connected to what happens in the city centre.
Yeah.
In the way that Glaswegians are. Like Glaswegians are like, you know, like if I wanted to go to an event in Glasgow tonight, you know, I could go to like Indie, or I could go to Mono, or like Broadcast, or Sleazy's, or like all these places where like I would see like a bunch of local bands, and a lot of the people there would be Glaswegian. And you'd also have a lot of people there who weren't Glaswegian, but my point is that like you would have that mix. Yeah. Whereas in Edinburgh, my experience is that a lot of the people that I meet there are people, including myself, who've like moved there. You know, and it's not that I mind that there's a lot of people who've moved there, but it's like, well, why aren't there so many people from the city taking part in the city?
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's a problem. I think that that's a question. That's sort of my thing, and I think like generally, I just find there's more to do in Glasgow. I just find it like a more dynamic and sort of exciting place to live, really.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I like this is where I would live, like if I was going to stay in Scotland.
Do you feel like Glasgow has more going on, whereas Edinburgh has has sort of three things going on, but there's lots of competition with one another? Like you could go into like 5 different pubs in Edinburgh, and they would all offer the same thing, but they're competing and trying to offer like an experience to tourists.
I don't know about that. I do definitely have a thing where it's like you can find live music in Edinburgh, but it's often going to be like sort of like people playing like the fiddle and stuff, which is sort of fine, but not necessarily like what I'm looking for. If I'm like, I want to go to like a gig,
right? Okay.
Like, go see my pals who put on like you know a hip hop night or something. Like
I mean, I think there's that. There's like what you're talking about there, but then there's also like the other thing is that there's like. What's that pub that's on Coburn Street, like near the very top, that's always got live music?
I don't spend a lot of time on Coburn Street.
Well, anyway, that like they play like live music in there, but it's people like doing covers of like
or else it's covers.
Yeah. Because when we went to me, my girlfriend, and her sister, we went to Carlingford in Ireland, which is a lovely little place near the border, and it's like there's a little village with like loads of amazing little pubs in it, and I was like, oh, I'd like to go in here, and she was like, no, let's not go in there because the music isn't like legit. It's not like legit. Like it's just touristy music. I do not want to listen to it. Her sister was like, I'm up for it. Like I will like listen to it. I was like, all right, well I don't want to like go in and listen to. I don't want to go in here where like there's and try and have like a nice pint and where people are playing music that's like literally like amplified and stuff like that, because I kind of, from being in Scotland and seeing like tourist trappings like that, I'll be like, no, I know what this isn't what I want. So we ended up going to a place in Dundalk or Drogheda. I always confuse the two places, called the Spirit Store, which is a really great pub. And they had like people playing trad music, but it was in like an alcove where it was just like the acoustics like amplified it, and you could talk like this at this level, but also like hear the music clearly. That's a really, really roundabout way of saying that like that is just for that type of music is just for tourists. Whereas if you're like, oh, I wouldn't mind going and listening to some like traditional music, but it's not, but that's not geared towards
you do get, there's some nice places in it, like, you know, Sandy Bells for example, or Captain's Bar, where like, you know, you just have like local people who go to like play the fiddle and like play some, you know, a bit of folk music, and I think that's lovely. Like I think that's really nice.
Toll as well sometimes.
There's quite a lot of places around like that. That's just
and
not.
Ben Nevis as well. Do you know Ben Nevis here?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I actually don't know the Ben Nevis, but yeah, like there's plenty of that around, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not really what I would be looking for.
Yeah.
But that's just like a personal thing to me. But if we're looking for what I'm looking for, it's a lot harder to find.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
In Edinburgh.
Yes.
But easier to find in Glasgow.
Much easier to find in Glasgow.
Right. The last two things that I want to ask you are. What would like be a home truth about Glasgow or Govan? That's not like it can be home either truth. Like
I feel like I've spat a few home truths already.
I mean like maybe like a criticism that you might have of like Glasgow, or it could be something that you believe, like a personally held belief about Glasgow.
I mean, I genuinely love Glasgow.
Yeah.
Like genuinely.
or maybe it is just that like not everybody from Govan is like the same, presents the same, and or not everybody from working class backgrounds presents the.
I mean, that's definitely true.
That
and
seems
I mean,
to be the theme from, you know.
I have a few friends who, like my friend Luke, we're very, very good friends, and one of the things that we bond over a lot is the fact that we're both from like working class backgrounds, but both like don't fit that stereotype. But it's that thing where like I do have a thing. The thing is like there's a lot of privilege that comes with passing as middle class. So I try and not have like too much. It can lead to some annoying conversations, but I try and not have like too much of like a chip on my shoulder about it, because it's also like ultimately like it is, you know, linguistically it's proven that if someone speaks with like a working class Glaswegian like accent generally, but like, you know, especially like a Glaswegian accent, a Scottish accent, like they won't be taken as seriously.
Yeah.
You know.
The last thing I wanted to ask you was, so your you told me what a home truth is, or tried to describe that as. What is a home comfort to you?
Pollock Country Park.
Okay.
It's like my favourite place. It's whenever people want to say that Glasgow is shit, and there's like, which is really angers me actually.
I've only been there once, and I've never walked around, and I've hardly been in it.
I mean, yeah, Pollock Park was like a staple of my childhood. Like, there's so much there, and yeah, you could go there every day in summer if you wanted. Yeah, there's like, if I describe it, it's just gonna sound shit. It's like a huge park. I think it's like maybe one of the biggest like city parks in Scotland.
I don't doubt it. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I'm sure someone's gonna be like, what about Holyrood Park? Yeah. It could be bigger than Holyrood, but no one like fact check me on that, or fact check me. Who cares? But it's like, yeah. So it's like, but it's huge. And you go in, and then first you've got like the horse riding. There's loads of horse riding in there, and then like we used to cycle there all the time.
Sure.
So it's like 20-minute cycle, and very nice cycle as well. It's through Moss Park, so like you go up through like Bellhouston and everything.
and it's where my granddad stays. And yeah, it's got a river that you can swim in, and there is a pond that you shouldn't swim in, but there are always tadpoles and frogs there every year. And yeah, we used to like go and play like Heidi in there, and just like, I don't know, like paths and paths of places that like just like basically going through forest essentially, and you've got like the actual like country house in the middle, and then you can go and see the horses, and there's also the Highland cows in there, and there's the burl collection, and there's like a big weird gnarly tree like behind like the house, because the house has all these big gardens that you can go and walk through, and then like yeah, there's this other like foresty bit behind it, and it's like it's huge. And yeah, I have like very, that's like when I think about like nice stuff happening in my childhood, I think maybe like a sense of, I don't know, it's like I could often, I think when I was a kid and like walking around Govan, like I could feel stressed out a lot. Like I could feel stressed by like who I was going to come across and what interactions I was going to have, and like I guess maybe being like completely free of that. Yeah. Yeah, it was just like a nice park.
Is that hands down best park in Glasgow for you?
I think so. Yeah.
It's not.
I mean, what's the contenders?
It's like a super park, but is it like a? It's like a super park. Like
it's definitely the best park.
Like
yeah.
A country park is a
yeah.
super park.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Because it's got it's like got country in it. Like,
I think I've honestly I could. It's almost as if I've been there once. I met a friend there once to cycle to. I can't remember where we went even. But I could. It's almost like I've never been there, basically. So I should go. I really should go.
Should go cycle around Pollock Park.
Because I'll cycling.
And horse riding.
Yeah.
Go riding horses there.
Lynn Park is my favourite.
Okay, I don't think I don't really have any memory of Lynn Park.
Because I used to live on the street that like went into that went into.
What's so good
Lynn
about
Park.
it?
It's got so much different types of park. It's like there's like forest.
There's nothing like lamer than describing why you love a park. Like, but it's like, trust us, bro.
There's grass. There's hills. There's forest, and there's like bits where it's like long grass.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to Elder Park.
Shite.
So it's a one-trick pony.
It's a one trick, but you've got bushes.
You've got bushes where
bushes.
people are fucking in them.
People are fucking in them. No, it does sound like a lovely park.
It is lovely.
Yeah.
It is lovely. I'll go to Pollock Country Park and
cycle around it.
And you should go to Lynn Park, and we'll FaceTime one another.
It's a bit easier for you to go to Pollock Park than it is for me to go to Lynn Park.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, like considerably so.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, also, where can people see your women's history videos?
Just follow me, because I haven't really got my shit together on it.
Have you not put them anywhere together?
It's complicated. It's very complicated. Because I was doing them with BBC The Social. But
so they have them.
No, it's complicated because I did 3 with them, and then The Social massively. Just to be fair, what The Social are offering now is like a lot better than what they were offering before, but as a result they're offering it to less people, which is entirely fair enough. Okay. But basically all the projects that they were working on got stopped, including the Women's History one. So we made 3, there was actually a 4th one due to go out, but they didn't release it, and they'll never release it. So that's quite sad, it's just like sitting in the archives.
Would you ever try and do them just yourself?
That's what I want to do, but it's been very hard to get my shit together.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, like, I decided to start doing them in September, and obviously, like, weather in Scotland
not
is yeah. So just like follow me.
During
just let
summer,
me know.
you're doing tours and.
Yeah, exactly. So just look up like Roisin Kenny Caird, and hopefully I will have my shit together at some point.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. I really
appreciate it. Welts muscles, candied
apples.
apples.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
You're very welcome.